Welcome back to the Awesemo Odds Betting Show. I am your host, Jordan Frank. How's everybody doing this morning? We are joined, as always, by now a collection of two sharp minds. We're going to start, of course, with Ben Raza. Ben, how you doing this morning?
I'm all right. Happy Friday, as I always say. We got some good things. I'm in a good mood. We have 4 college football games tonight, which I'm excited about. And then we got the normal NFL schedule on Sunday.
It's an exciting time, as we continually say every single week. It seems like we have Nolan Kelly who's joining us. We brought him on, I think, originally to be a guest here and there. He's caught the bug. He loves Ben and I, and just can't get enough of this show. Nolan, how you doing?
What's going on? I'm ready to I'm ready to turn this ship around. We're only one game under 500, you and me. We'll get to Ben's picks later.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
It's a tight race. I think we're just gonna about to catch fire here. So I like it.
That's right. That's right. Do we want to go into the post-mortem details of what was last week? We can kind of give a quick breakdown, and then we can move into the games for week 4.
Yeah. I think, well, for my picks, I know I had a bit of a bad beat there. That Darren Waller touchdown cost me the under in the Minnesota-Oakland game. It was a meaningless last drive touchdown. So what are you going to do? My Washington +4 pick was really interesting because, all the sharp money was on Washington early on in the week. And then the money came flooding in on the Bears on Monday. Just out of nowhere, I think. And really it makes sense. I mean, when you really look at these teams, like it wasn't it wasn't really close. I mean, the Bears are still the Bears and Washington's still Washington. And when you kind of take a step back sometimes and think about it, it's like, wait, this team should not have been favored by just 4 points. And so I feel like a fish for that one. What are you going to do? And then, Saints in Seattle was my favorite player of the week, and that Saints delivered. So, 1 and 2 week. What are you going to do? Sometimes you get a bad beat. Sometimes you get a good beat.
Yeah, Saints, I think we all like that call a lot. With the Redskins, man, I mean, it is always hard to predict kind of when the money is going to come in, but yeah, you kind of hit it on the head there. My picks just real quickly. I felt pretty good. Obviously, as anybody who's bet sports know, when you feel like you got a 3-0 or a winner, like it doesn't take long for that to get snatched away. So I got hooked by the Chiefs. I thought that was a lock, and I thought the Jets were going to kill me. Obviously, those games kind of flipped. I got super lucky with the Jets defense scoring. I was not expecting the Jets offense to score as I watched that disaster unfold. Ben, how you feeling looking back?
I was also 1 and 2. Carolina and Arizona, that kind of cruised over. I think we all, Nolan, I know you were really into that. Both teams really paced up in that spot. The other 2 games, the Philly game, I had an under in that game, and anytime you get a kickoff return for a touchdown, it's going to be a long day on that market. My last pick was the Bills, who it looked like it was good, and then they kind of let Cincy in the game. They were lucky to escape with a win when it was all said and done. So long season, we'll be all right. I'm interested to see where we go this week though, because the Bills game is one of many a very interesting spread. That they get the Patriots at home in the battle of 3-0 teams in the AFC East.
This is a really fascinating week. I usually say that I have so many plays that I like. This week it was the opposite for me. I don't know about you guys, but I thought the lines were pretty tight this week, and there's just some tough matchups.
I had some real trouble this week, and a lot of the lines that I like kind of have a lot of injuries and factors that are keep preventing me from betting them. Like I'm not betting anything right now. I'm gonna still make my picks, but I'm gonna wait and see what happens with some of these injuries leading up to game time in order to make final calls there and try and get on it as soon as some injury news is announced. Because I think there are a few opportunities with lines hovering around the 6.5 to 7.5 point line that could shift depending on what happens with some of these injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't talk about teasers too much, and we don't allow teasers in our contest here. But
I was going to say that because I had a teaser ready to go here. So I'm glad I didn't pick it.
We can't do it. Although I'd be teasing games every week if we allowed that, and losing
those
probably.
Long teasers.
There's nothing I love more than a good teaser, and it just kills you. I don't know why. I don't know how, but somehow the teaser just always manages to screw up.
Yeah, teasers are a danger. If you don't know what you're doing, teasers are like possibly the worst bet ever. But if you're teasing around key numbers, Wong type teasers,
yeah,
the books have gotten sharper. I mean, not to dive too much into this, but they're minus 120 at most places these days.
Well, this is and depending on the book, I feel like sometimes, like I know that Bodog used to have like 10.5 point teasers, which was a lot of fun. Sometimes then you'd have to put a minimum of 3 teams in, but there's some lines hovering right at 7 points here that are looking pretty good for I think these favorites. So it'll be interesting. Love to hear your thoughts if you guys got any teaser action at some point during the show.
Yeah, for sure. I know I've come across some data recently, kind of confirmed what I've always kind of thought, is that if you can tease through 7, 6, and 3, so either a favorite going down or a dog going up, like those are actually plus EV bets.
Yep.
It's just hard to find teams in that exact range, right? So you need favorites in like that 7.5 to 8.5 point range to tease them down to like 2 or 1. That's really where you get plus EV spots. And we'll talk about it. Why don't we jump right into it? I think that I am the first one up this week, if I recall kind of how we're organizing this.
Take it away.
I'm going to come out, I think, with fire right away here. So the last 3 weeks, definitely 2 out of the 3 on this show, but the last 3 weeks for me, I've been all over the Colts. I think they've been extremely undervalued. Ben, you and I talked about it in the preseason, how the Andrew Luck narrative just flipped the script way too far, and the season win total was too low, and they just weren't getting any respect in the betting market. And we've seen that over the last 3 weeks. The Colts have covered all 3 games pretty easily in most of these spots. And this week they get the Raiders at home, and I am going the other way. I'm going to take the Raiders getting 7 points on the road here. A couple of things that I'm really looking at in this game, definitely injuries for the Colts. They're down Hooker 4 to 6 weeks. He's their best safety, best guy in the back of the defense by far. They're also without Leonard. I really think that the Raiders are going to be able to run the ball very effectively against this Colts front seven. Part of this kind of worries me that I'm relying on John Gruden to get that right, but I think if they can slow the game down, really pound the ball, I really like the spot for the Raiders. I think the line is just too high. It opened at 6. It moved to 7, even though the majority, I'm seeing about 2/3 of the bets are on the Colts. So this is a classic reverse line movement. And if you look into the data, it confirms that there's a lot more money coming in on the Raiders, even though that line is moving the other direction. So I like being on that side of things. I'm getting a full touchdown here. I just love this opportunity. Do I love the Raiders? No, of course not. But I think this is just too good of a spot here for the Raiders.
I like it. So that's, am I next?
Sure.
Because that's also my pick.
Oh, damn.
All right, good. I like that. I'll take, hopefully.
Ben's just like rubbing
2 on the Raiders.
together.
Wow.
Everyone's on the Raiders. So, yeah, I like the +7. I kind of outlined a lot of the things that you just talked about. We're seeing reverse line movement. 2/3 of the bets, 74% of the bets are on, 74% of the money is on the Raiders, 36% of the bets are on the Raiders. So that's generally indicative of the sharps being on the Raiders. Well, not generally, it is. And then, but I spoke a little bit about injuries, and this is what I'm a little bit worried about. Darius Leonard questionable, Malik Hooker out for the Colts 4 to 6 weeks. T.Y. Hilton's not going to be, even if he plays, he's not going to be himself. I think I read a stat where receivers with this, what is it, quad injury?
Quad, yeah.
Yeah. So receivers with quad or hamstrings injuries usually just do not perform at the same level. I can't remember the stat, but it was like 40% less productive or something when they have that injury. So I'm not super worried about T.Y. Hilton being out there and being a burner. That leaves a pretty thin receiving core for the Colts. They could run the ball on the Raiders. The Raiders have a terrible run defense, but the strength of this Raiders team is passing to the tight end and the running game, and those are the 2 weaknesses of the Colts defense. So I like the Raiders +7 for many of the reasons that you outlined as well. I'm kind of hoping this gets to +7.5, though I'm not sure that it will. So just kind of waiting to see on this game and waiting to see what's going on with these Colts injuries. But yeah, give me the Raiders +7.
All right. Yeah, It looks like from what I'm seeing, the spread's moving with you guys. On my screen, I see the Raiders at +6.5. not where we have a dedicated place where we're locking our picks, but I could see that closing, more in your favor, which is what you want to do. So for my first pick, I'm sticking with this team who can't seem to get right, and they just can't get a win. I'm laying the 3 points with the Broncos at home against Gardner Minshew and the Jags. So this is a team that should have beat the Bears. Thought they played pretty well last week in Green Bay. Just can't get a win. And I wrote this in one of my articles this week that's available on the site. The craziest NFL stat of the year has to be that the Broncos defense has no turnovers and no sacks.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how that's possible.
That's crazy.
Like, they got Bradley Chubb, they have Von Miller. Just by random chance, you should be getting sacks. So that's going to change, obviously, and we'll see. They're much better at home. Gardner Minshew's been impressive, but this is a tough spot for them, tough spot for the Jags. I know they had the long, they're coming off a Thursday game, which is nice. But I for the Broncos to have any hope, they need this game. They're probably not going anywhere anyway, but I do think they kind of break the seal and win. I don't want to say convincingly, but it's only 3 points. I'm happy to lay that at home with the Broncos.
I like that call.
They should.
Yeah, I like that. I was looking at that game very closely as well. And yeah, Gardner Minshew on the road in Denver, man, that seems like a ripe opportunity for this Denver defense to.
You would hope. And again, I think the record stands at 0-3, but if you've watched the Broncos, yeah, they were not ready to play in week 1. There's no excuse against the Raiders, but no disrespect losing in Lambeau, and they should. I think everyone would acknowledge they should have beat the Bears in their first home game. So that's where I'm rolling. Now, are we snaking it? So do I go back to back here or what?
Yep, we're gonna do the snake. So let's see what your second pick is.
All right, second pick. I am going to Monday Night Football, and I am going with the over 43.5 with the Bengals. They are going to Pittsburgh. This is a game that used to be like the marquee matchup in the AFC, and now it's just not a good situation for either of them. But I just look at the offenses, and I think, Mason Rudolph is a guy who can sling it. I don't worry about him. I think he's going to, be just fine on the offensive side with Juju, with Connor. Plenty of guys going against Cincinnati's pretty bad defense. And then on the other side, Mixon could have another tough sledding game, but we've seen Dalton put up some points specifically in week 1 against the Seahawks. I think both offenses have a window to really get going. It might not be efficient, but with turnovers, with quick strikes, even in garbage time, I could see this game kind of getting a little out of control in terms of scoring. So 43.5, I'm happy to take the over in that spot.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like Andy Dalton's stats over 3 weeks, like you don't realize. I think we talked about it last week. I mean, he had a career high in yardage week 1. He followed that up with another 300-yard game. He has 978 yards for the season, and yeah, I mean, even last week in Buffalo, it was ugly, but they made a game of that. And I do like the way their offense is performing, even with Mixon not really getting up to speed yet. I think it's a really good opportunity to put some points on the board. What do you think, Nolan?
Yeah, I was looking at this one because I kind of like the Cincinnati side of this game. I missed what your initial take there. Did you say the over, Ben?
I like the over in that game, yeah.
Yeah, 43.5. I don't have any hot takes here, but I think, like this Pittsburgh defense certainly looked pretty good. It's with Minka Fitzpatrick back there last week. I don't know, man. I don't know. I'm gonna pass on having a hot take on this one. Trust your instincts, Ben.
It's a situation, I've been trying to look at it. I don't want to reference the Panthers and the Cardinals because that was more of a pace thing that I looked at last week, and I think that most people picked up on that. But there is I don't want to say a disconnect, but when you have teams that are just wildly inefficient, the turnovers, the quicks, you can get there in a number of ways. It doesn't mean that these teams are going to be crisp marching down the field. But at the same time, I don't see an impossible scenario where, a pick six, a fumble, a sloppy play can really just pad that total really quickly.
Yeah, makes total sense.
Yeah, you put these teams, with a short field off of a turnover, and that can flip the script really quickly, and that's kind of what you're hoping for here.
Absolutely.
All right, I guess I'm up here, hey?
You are up.
All right, I don't know. I'm going with the under in the Washington Redskins versus New York Giants game here. Total is 49.5. I think it's I want to say second highest total on the slate.
Yeah,
second highest.
Second highest total on the slate. So No Saquon Barkley. Like, I know Daniel Jones was a revelation last week, but he's really only got 2 weapons to throw to. Washington side, they do like to pass the ball a lot. The total on this with this matchup, I don't usually like to cite stats like this, but divisional matchups, at least they meet a couple times a year. They've gone under 13 of the last 16 games. What else? The total, yes. Sorry. The total's gone under 4 of the last 5 games, 13 of the last 16 games with the Giants on the road. All the trends are like that this game goes under, and this total just seems a little bit high to me. I don't know what you guys think. Like, am I just completely off on this one? But like, I don't see either team really having that many weapons or having great explosive offenses. It's really just a case of 2 bad defenses going up against each other. And if these like kind of middling, I think offenses can't capitalize on that, I think that we might see an under here. But tell me I'm wrong on that one.
So I'll just say real quick, the one thing I looked at that game, and the one thing I would be concerned if I took that pick is they're both playing faster than you would think. The pace stats are actually up there. They're both top 5 and seconds per play so far the year. Now, part of that is probably because these are bad teams and they're trailing, trying to play catch up. So it gets progressively faster as the game goes on. You're going to need, not to talk out of both sides of the mouth, but on the flip side, when you're talking about unders, when you have inefficient offenses, they can kill good drives just as quickly with a bad turnover where, you march down the field and a red zone turnover and you get no points out of it. So we'll see. Both these defenses are awful. But at the same time, Daniel Jones, who I was certainly impressed like everyone else, but it's one game. We'll see. It's a matter of time before Haskins gets in there. I don't think it's this week, but Keenum needs to be better. He was just absolutely awful against the Bears.
Ben, it's been like 15, 20 minutes. I've been waiting for your Daniel Jones victory lap here.
Yeah, that's right, man.
I don't get many victory laps talking about the NFL, so
Is Dave Gettleman taking you out for steaks and some scotch tonight, or what?
It's sad because, already in the Twitter world, there's like everyone's apparently a Daniel Jones person these days. But yeah.
Always has been, yeah.
So sad. Yeah, exactly. There was no pushback with that pick at all. Everyone knew.
Yeah, great draft pick.
But Danny Dimes, yeah, I mean, the mobility, that was a welcome sight for all Giants fans.
Yeah, I don't want to step on anyone's toes if anyone's going to, mention that game, but that's a really interesting line with the Giants, hosting the Redskins this week. It's not one of my picks, but it's one that I looked at really closely, and I'm still going to keep looking at it. If that number comes down slightly, I don't know. I don't want to steal thunder. I might have to jump on the Giants here.
I looked at that game too. Not one of my picks though.
No Case Keenum believers in the house. All right, I'm riding McLaurin F1. This is going to be a fun game to stack in DFS too. I think because all these guys are so cheap and that total is so high. I mean, it's going to be really hard to get off some of these options. So
yeah, that definitely going to be a popular game, especially with that big total that we're going to try and fade.
You're up, Mr. Frank.
All right. I got my second and third pick then here in a row here, right? All right. So my second pick is going to be maybe another one that's surprising, but it's going to be Carolina. They're going on the road to Houston. I'm seeing 4 on our site that we're looking at. So Carolina's getting 4 points at Houston. There's a couple of reasons that I'm really looking at this matchup. Houston, I really want to like Houston, but their offensive line is so bad, and Deshaun Watson is always just running for his life. I think it's such a good matchup for Carolina's front 7, who is really underrated. They had 8 sacks last week of Kyler Murray. They also, Carolina's defense, that is allowing 4.3 yards per play, which is the second best in the league, only behind the Patriots. They have a great pass rush, which I think is going to be the opportunity here to really pressure Watson. Houston hasn't shown anything on the ground. They've really been one-dimensional and got lucky to escape last week with a win. One just like super random, doesn't necessarily mean anything kind of stat, but if you look at the last 6 weeks of the Panthers going back to week 15 of last year, and you want to talk about the number of touchdowns thrown by their quarterback, let me break this down for you guys. I'm sure you're dying to hear this breakdown. Week 15 last year, Cam Newton, 0 touchdowns. Week 16, Cam Newton, 0 touchdowns. Week 17, Kyle Allen, 2 touchdowns. Week 1 this year, Cam Newton, 0. Week 2, Cam, 0. Week 3, Kyle Allen, 4 touchdowns.
So they're waiting for Cam to get back so they can put him back in the lineup, right?
Amen. That's right. That's right. Obviously, there's injuries, and that stat isn't that indicative, but it just kind of shows me and kind of what we've seen that Kyle Allen is a legit quarterback. He's not one of these, below average backup quarterbacks. Normally I wouldn't want to be backing somebody going on the road in their second or third, I guess, career start. But I just like this game. I like Carolina catching 4.
Okay. Kyle Allen.
I like that too.
Kyle Allen it's an interesting situation because I think we all talked about, I think the public thinks, Cam Newton's out, big drop off. It might be an improvement at this point because it was similar to Daniel Jones in the sense that even if he struggled, how bad could it be compared to Eli at this point? So Kyle Allen is a guy, he's got some talent. Now, I will say it's not going to be just smooth sailing all the time. The Cardinals, they got issues.
Cardinals have a stout defense. He looked great last week, Kyle Allen.
It's just Mahomes is dust already. These guys, these newcomers have taken over the league. Kyle Allen, Daniel Jones. But
that's right. And what I think we see, and not to kind of over exaggerate here, but like Kyle Allen and even with Daniel Jones, they kind of unlock their weapons to some degree. Eli certainly was not throwing it down the field. Cam obviously would, but was so inaccurate, like we talked about. So the Panthers have a lot of skill position players that I really like. And we saw Samuel had a great game last week. Obviously, McCaffrey is always going to have pretty solid games, but he had a monster game. I just think he works well in their offense. And like we've said, Cam just wasn't right. It's hard to give him a lot of flack when he was clearly battling a shoulder injury, a foot injury. He's just been going through a hard time. So I just think this is a little bit inflated, this number here.
Yeah, I like it. I like what I saw at Allen last week too. Just a game changer for this offense. I think this is going to be a pretty tight game. But when you look at the defensive side of the ball and the offensive side of the ball, the only real X factor is if Kyle Allen's the real deal, then Carolina shouldn't be 4-point dogs in this game. You mentioned the Texans' offensive line; it's been terrible. I don't know what it is about this Texans team. I just don't really like it. I don't know, it's play calling. I don't know. The offense has not been as good as it should have been this so far. I was expecting a big year out of Deshaun Watson, and that hasn't really transpired as of yet. 4 points seems like a lot. I could even see the Panthers winning this game outright.
Yeah, I'll definitely be sprinkling in this one. And like you said, Nolan, if you put these teams on a neutral field, I'm not convinced Houston is the better team. So that being said, I just don't think this should be a 4-point line. I think it should be closer to 3. And that 1 point is huge. I mean, we're just looking to get off these key numbers in the NFL, and I'll take my chances with the road team here, with a good defense that can get pressure on the quarterback and kind of force Watson to play one-dimensionally, which is basically what they do every week anyways, but hopefully just get a lot of pressure on them.
Well, I got some breaking news for you guys.
Oh, yeah?
We're in F1, not practicing today with a hamstring injury.
Uh-oh.
You up that under. Go get it right now.
I was about to say, that can only help you.
Yeah.
We'll have to keep an eye on that for DFS. What is all right, you're up again.
All right, let me close it out with my third pick. I'm seeing on where we're looking 9.5. So I'm going to kind of do another hold your nose with Tampa Bay traveling to cross country to the LA Rams, getting 9.5 points. Tampa Bay is another team. It's really hard to get a grasp on what's going on there. Week 1, epic disaster, 2 pick sixes. They lose big to the Niners at home. Maybe the Niners are a little bit better than we gave them credit for, or maybe at least on the defensive side. But Tampa Bay came back. They beat Carolina in a tough game. And then you have the disaster from last week against your boy Danny Dimes. I don't know if you guys saw kind of how that game played out at the end. I mean, I don't know how Tampa Bay actually lost. So their coach decides to take a delay game penalty because their kicker kicks better from longer distance than shorter.
Spoiler alert, he doesn't.
I've never heard that one before, except he obviously missed the field goal and they lose. But Tampa Bay, I like Tampa Bay in the spot just because they're getting too many points. I don't think the Rams should be laying 9.5. I've even seen 10s. I would have loved to have gotten that 10 and in real life, I'm going to wait to bet this game just with the hopes that I can get to 10. Uh, the Rams defense has been good. You can kind of dissect their schedule and see, look, they played the Saints. They had a convincing win against the Saints, but Breeze missed most of that game. You had that Carolina game week 1, which got sloppy and kind of got out of hand based on turnovers, although the Panthers were kind of hanging at the end. And then last week with Cleveland, look, Ben, you and I have been talking about Cleveland for months, how we thought they were just so overvalued and so much hype. And I didn't think the Rams honestly played that well against the Browns. Like, the Browns obviously had a chance at the end of that game to tie it. So I don't love the way the Rams are playing. I've talked before that I'm not a big Goff guy. If you look at his stats under pressure, he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. Tampa Bay's front seven is actually kind of underrated. I really like kind of some of their improvements with Bevel in Tampa on the defensive side. So I just like the number here. It's kind of the theme to most of my picks. I'm more the numbers. If I see a road team getting this many points, I'm going to look at it kind of automatically. And then as I dig in, I see that the bet percentage is about 50-50, but 76% of the money is coming in on Tampa Bay. So I like that. It's probably sharp money coming in. So I'm going to take Tampa plus 9.5.
Well, Jordan, you and I are on the same page.
Nice. I like to hear this again. All right.
I don't like that, Nolan. Come on.
This is game theory wise. I think we're going to have to switch up our picks, and only one of us is allowed to take the big reverse line movements moving forward. Yeah, 49% of the money coming in on Tampa, or 49% of the bets, 71% of the money coming in on Tampa plus 9.5. This is another game I'm waiting to bet to see what happens. Chris Godwin's practicing today. Who else is injured for? Somebody else is injured for the Bucks as well. Devin White and Vita Vea are still not practicing, so waiting to see what happens. I think Villa is going to play. Devin White maybe a little bit more questionable. Those are the key cogs in their defense, though. I think that Tampa's run defense, I've said it before in this show, I think people are catching on now, but this is a really good run defense, despite the fact that they were terrible last year, probably one of the most improved units in the league. So that's going to mean the Rams are going to probably struggle to run the ball a little bit. They're going to be forced to pass, which is fine. I mean, it's the Rams. They have an amazing passing offense, but I think if you could take one thing away from them, that's in Tampa's favor. And then, the real X factor here is just going to be whether or not Jameis turns the ball over. I think if Jameis turns the ball over, this one could be tight. If he doesn't, this one could be tight. If he does, then sure, we could be looking at a blowout, hoping for some sort of backdoor cover here. I am irrationally high on the Bucks this year, so I'm going to take the 9.5 points and cross my fingers that a lot of these injured Bucks are able to go, and this offense can hang with the Rams passing offense as well. I'm a little bit bearish on the Rams. I think that they're hurt a little. They don't seem like the same team from last year, and I think part of that reason is just the interior of their offensive line is new. They got two sophomores starting there who never played in the NFL before. So I think that was obviously one of the strengths of their team last year. So that interior offensive line going up against a very good defensive tackle unit from Tampa is another advantage for the Bucks there. So give me the Bucks, give me the 9.5 points, and I hope that everyone plays.
I'm not taking that game. I will say I would be against you guys, though. I think that the mismatch with the Rams defensive line is going to really cause problems and elevate an already turnover-prone Jameis into some big mistakes. So we'll see. I totally get.
Take a stand. Yeah, I think you need to take that game.
When you hear my next pick, you'll hear that. But before I do, I want to just ask real quick, because Chad is talking about this. None of our picks, but if you had to take a stance on the Patriots-Bills game, do you guys have a feel? Because it's a spread that I think at first glance is somewhat enticing. You see, oh, wow, Patriots only a touchdown favorite. Buffalo's terrible. Then you dig in, and the more I dig, the more I actually lean with the home team in the Bills. I have no position on the game right now, but do either of you have a take there?
I'm pro Bills at +7. That's
pro Bills. I'm waiting to see what that line does. It's a game that I've looked at pretty closely as well. You got to assume that public money is going to come in on the Patriots. So if you do like the Bills, I would just wait. I think you're going to get it. You're going to get 7.5. they're going to move off the key
that's the
number.
reason to wait, right? Like I actually had it in my notes today. I'm like, I really like the Bills, but I would expect that line to move to 7.5. So don't bet it right now. Just wait. It's not going to go to 6.5 anyways. The worst case scenario is you're going to get it at 7. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
It's been bouncing around. I saw 7.5 early in the week. I saw 6.5. So we'll see. It's kind of just oscillating around. Interesting game though. So
but Buffalo, Ben, I'd be curious, kind of your thoughts. I mean, if you obviously look at who they played, it's been not the steepest competition, right? So trying to analyze, how the Patriots are going to match up against the Bills. Like the Bills have played the Jets, the Giants,
and the Bengals.
And the Bengals.
It's not great. No, I mean, they get them at. It's a good spot for the Bills in theory. They get them at home. The Patriots are a little banged up. Obviously, they've had a little turnover. They've looked. I mean, the defense is unbelievable right now. But again, I do think that the NFL Patriots are not immune to letting one slip away early in the year. Now, maybe this is like the Randy Moss team where it was just a juggernaut. I don't know, but I'm not there just yet. So I certainly didn't rush to the window to hit the Patriots at -7. That's for sure.
No. And like with the Bears funnel defense, they're probably going to have to I'm assuming their game plan is going to be to run the ball. This total is pretty low at 42.5. So I think it's going to be tight.
Yeah, Josh Allen needs to take care of the ball. That's a key. This is a really tough test for him. I hope he's ready. Obviously, I hate the Patriots and I love Josh Allen, so it's a big life game for me, but not one of my picks. I'll get to my last game. I was gonna say the Falcons. They're a team that I looked at a good amount, but you know what? I'm gonna take a little stand on the show. Why not? I'm taking the Dolphins, 15.5 points at home. I know they're historically bad. I know they've looked god awful in their first 3 games, but I will say that, again, do I think the Dolphins are going to win the game? No, but I'm getting 15.5 points in a game. The over-under is 44.5. They're at home. The Chargers haven't exactly looked like a juggernaut either. And then I will say Josh Rosen, I thought was pretty impressive. He has nobody around him. Kenyon Drake is fumbling the ball on the goal line. Preston Williams is dropping touchdowns. That game last week, it could have been better from a score standpoint. It ended 31-6 in Dallas. And I actually thought that the Bills looked a little more competent in terms of just being an NFL team. So this is a spread that I think is going to come down. I wouldn't be stunned to see it close around 14, to be honest. And I'm going to take, as gross as it is, a Dolphins team that, although they should lose the game, I think they'll be competitive at home for a change.
Damn, you know how many points they're getting outscored by so far this year?
It's got to be over 100.
39 per game.
Yeah, that's over 100. That's not good. I mean, they've given up, I don't have it in front of me, but they've given up, certainly over 100 points. The way the Patriots defense is going, they may not give that up till like week 13, 14. It's ridiculous how bad they've looked. But you know what? In the NFL, it's not like the Dolphins aren't going to cover this year. Let's be realistic. This is not the winner. It's can they cover 15.5?
Yeah. Ben, I don't know why, but I was watching that Dolphins-Cowboys game. Yeah, they got blown out, but it was 10-6 with about 3 minutes left in the second half with Miami driving. Like I actually thought Miami was going to put up a fight. They obviously turned it over and then it got out of hand in the second half. But that first half, they were neck and neck with the Cowboys. What does that mean going forward? I don't know, but it wasn't a total disaster that you might think if you just look at the box score.
Absolutely. And I think in a way that has inflated, again, I'm not advocating that Miami is anything besides horrible, but we just talked about the Bills. They got the Giants, the Jets, and the Bengals. The Dolphins have played the Ravens, they played the Patriots, and they went to the Cowboys. That's not exactly, we'll see. They're going to have easier games than they've already had. Honestly, this might be their easiest opponent at home against the Chargers, which is no picnic. But, you're still getting over 2 touchdowns with, questionable skill set. I'm not acknowledging that they're anything but terrible, but you know what? Again, 15.5 in the NFL is a lot of points.
I'm with you, man. I think they can't continue to lose at this rate. I mean,
never say never. I feel so bad for Josh Rosen because I think he's a damn good player. I hope he gets a real situation at some point.
Huh. All right. That's interesting.
So this seems like the best segue ever into Survivor. Ben, do you want to go first with Survivor since we're just talking about Miami, and obviously everybody's fading Miami week after week in Survivor leagues.
Absolutely. So naturally, although I think that the Chargers win this game, I'm not choosing them. I think this is a good week if you want to be aggressive to let other people, they're going to be massively owned. And I do a Survivor recap each and every week that's available free on our site. Go check it out. And the picking on Miami is the number one strategy every week. But I'm going to go against you boys. I know you guys are getting 9.5 points. This is Survivor where you just need to pick a winner. I think the Rams win pretty easily this week at home against Tampa. I have no problem burning them. I know they're an elite team, but this is a spot I feel pretty comfortable that their defensive line will just really dismantle whatever Tampa wants to do offensively. And I'll let other people, maybe I get a miracle upset. And then the minute Miami wins, everybody's Survivor pool is turned upside down.
Yeah.
Nolan, do you want me to go next, or do you want to throw in your pick?
Yeah, no, I can go. I was just going to say that, like, I agree with you. There's going to be a time to strike here, right? It might be, I'm just going to look at the Dolphins schedule. And like, I think it's going to be a home game. You're going to probably want a home game, and you're going to probably want a week where there aren't a lot of other options. And then it's going to be a team like the Bills or the Jets or someone that you can eliminate. You can eliminate a good chunk of people, but not everyone in your pool. So there's a possibility there that I think that's maybe the game that they win.
What about week 6 when they're hosting the Redskins coming off a bye? Wow.
That's
what I was thinking. Washington there? Oof.
Like that might be the game where it's not necessarily that like everyone's going to take them, but you can eliminate a lot of kind of like the rubes who are just going to click no matter what, like just flow charted, I think. So depending on what that line is like, I guess, or maybe people be scared off on that. Like, I know looking at that, like, I wouldn't be very comfortable taking Washington in that spot. So, but anyways, yeah, I think 15.5 point favorite. I'm looking at the Chargers schedule the rest of the way, and this is the game that they're favored. They're not favored to win a game by about an 80% chance. Until week 16 again. I think the rest of their games are around 65 to 70. So I'm not really losing a lot of equity. I don't think I would have taken the Chargers again for a little while anyway. So I'm just going to go with one more crack at the Dolphins and take the Chargers here.
Nothing wrong with that. I want to be clear. If you don't know or you don't like the other, the Colts or the Rams, go with the herd. There's nothing wrong about that. It's just I will say it's correlated in the sense the games that Miami may win, quote unquote, you're not going to get the massive ownership in terms of people taking that team as you will. Like when they play the Jets, not a lot of people, not nearly as many people are going to be taking the Jets in a spot like that. So it is a risk reward.
Yeah, for sure. Especially if you're in a much larger Survivor pool, that's really where you want to kind of fade the public on a pick like that.
Right? It's like you have to know the size of your Survivor pool.
If you're
100%.
Survivor pool, this might be the spot to fade.
Yeah. So I'm not too exciting, but I'm going with Ben here. Even though I like Tampa to cover, and maybe you can see this as a hedge, I don't know, but I'm picking the Rams as well. Really, I'm kind of looking at the Rams schedule and trying to play out when I want to use the Rams, and they don't have a lot of great spots. The only other one that I would really hone in on is week 8 when they host the Bengals, but that's the same week that Pittsburgh is hosting Miami. It's going to be a double-digit favorite. I'm not going to be on Pittsburgh probably any other potential game throughout the season. So I'm kind of looking ahead. It's always dangerous to do that in a Survivor, but I think you have to some degree to kind of plan out where you're going to burn some of these better teams. Nolan, you obviously make a good point.
Guys. I think I didn't even think about that, but that makes a lot of sense. I think the reasons that you just articulated are smart reasons to be on the Rams this week. Like looking at their schedule, they go to Seattle. You're not going to take them there because that's a tough game. To 49ers at home. Who knows with the 49ers? They might actually be good. Their defense is much improved. Falcons, Rams, that's Rams on the road.
Rams, yeah.
Rams, Bengals, for the reason you mentioned, you're going to want to probably take the Steelers. And then it's tough matchups all the way down. The only one is week 17 where they're home to the Cardinals, and
it could be resting.
If you've still got them at that point, you're probably you're probably the only person left anyways. So
Yeah. Like I'd like to project out. I don't want to go too far and get, too, complicated. But I do think, especially with the better teams, you want to find the best spots to burn them. So conversely, with the Chargers, right, they don't have another great spot. So that's kind of the converse here. Like they obviously go to Oakland. That's not a spot that I really like. They host Oakland week 16. I don't want to project all the way out to week 16. So there's always a risk reward. For me, it's kind of exactly what Ben is saying. Like this is just kind of a pivot. Like you hope this is the miracle week that Miami knocks out 60% or more of your survivor field.
Yeah. I mean, the prudent play is until further notice and until the Dolphins play a horrible team, you probably just pick against them. But
yeah,
crazy things happen. And unlike what we have seen the past 3 weeks, I think this game is a little different. Maybe I'm wrong. And maybe the Dolphins, it doesn't really matter who they play. But I'm not sure that's the case. I think that we're putting them in a bucket where every team is going to beat them by 25 and 30. I don't think that's the case, even though they are making me somewhat nervous saying that on this podcast.
Yeah, that's for sure. I want to get your guys' thoughts real quick on a couple other games. We could just kind of hit really quickly, but some of the really interesting lines to me are, well, definitely the Bears, a 2-point favorite at home against the Vikings. That line opened at 3, which is what I probably would have expected it to stay at. And immediately the books got hammered with Vikings money, and that's come down to 2.5 or even 2. What do you like the Bears in this spot at all?
I do. I wrote them up. I have a betting article on the site. Again, feel free to check it out so you can bet the opposite and pile up the money. But I like the Bears.
Not here.
No, not here. I'm about to turn it on, hopefully. At home, Trubisky is Trubisky, but that defense is unbelievable. And if they shut down Dalvin Cook to an extent, I think they can limit him. I still have no trust in Cousins. So on the road, I was stunned. I thought this was a spread that would work the other way, to be honest, and that is not what happened.
Yeah, I think that the main lean for me here would be the Chicago, just based off the Bears pass rush versus the Vikings offensive line, which is the second worst pass blocking unit in the entire NFL. Their rookie center James Bradbury has struggled thus far. That's a huge mismatch, I think, and that could dictate the game. So I would lean Bears on this one.
Yeah, you have two quarterbacks who I don't really want to trust at all, and you get one at home with a great defense and one on the road also with a great defense. But I was just very surprised that all of the money seems to be coming in at least 2-1 on the Vikings to move that game off of the 3. What about the Saints?
Bradbury, not James Bradbury.
What about Saints Cowboys? That's a game that I really like the Saints as the home dog. Not enough to make my top 3 here, but a game that I've been looking at really closely and probably going to wait to see where it goes. But did you guys have any thoughts on that game?
So that was a game, friend of the show, Antoine in chat was talking about that. He also was leaning Saints. I see it. It's a tough spot kind of for Dallas. They've beaten up on some cupcakes going into the Superdome. And I think we all, Nolan nailed it with the actual pick. But we were all saying that as good as Drew Brees is, that Sean Payton can get them in advantageous positions even without him. And I think we saw Kamara was a fantastic DFS play last week at really low ownership.
Yeah.
The Saints team is not dead and buried by any stretch of the imagination. So I would lean a home dog is always going to entice me somewhat. And when you get a team of this caliber as a home dog, it's hard to not lean there for me.
Can I just give you one more stat on that Vikings Bears?
Always.
Please.
I just looked this up. It's not really a stat, but PFF has rates all their offensive linemen individually and gives them pass blocking range grades. The highest ones are 90, 97. You get a bad player who's 50, somewhere in there. Garrett Bradbury is a 6.
Grade. Yeah, that can't be good.
Wow.
0.6. He's been the worst player, but possibly the worst player in the NFL this year. So that's saying something. Saints Cowboys. Yeah. What's the line on this one? Is it -2?
I think it's
2.5. I think right now the Saints is the home dog.
Yeah. I'm inclined to go Cowboys here. Yeah.
Interesting.
I don't know.
They keep it rolling.
It's tough. I mean, looks like Lattimore is out, I guess. Is that right? So, but he hasn't been great this year. Eli Apple certainly in that Saints secondary. I'm just a believer in the Cowboys. I don't know. This is a strength on strength matchup because the strength of that Saints D is their run defense, and the Cowboys are going to want to run the ball. But I just like what I've seen out of the Cowboys and their play calling, and give me Dak over Teddy Bridgewater. Yeah, it's going to be a tight game. I think the Saints are pretty underrated with Bridgewater at the helm. They still got the weapons, but I like the Dallas D. I like the Dallas O. So I'll take 2.5 points in that one. I think it's going to be a close game though. It should be a good one.
Yeah, it's a huge measuring stick for. I mean,
It
I think
is.
a lot of people are saying Dallas. Maybe they are a legit NFC contender. If they are, they should go in and they should win this game.
What do you think this line would be with Breeze at the helm? 3? New Orleans -3?
Yeah, the Saints would be
maybe even 3.5. I don't know. It's hard. I guess we wouldn't know what the Saints would have looked like. Did they beat the Rams in that game? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question. And for me, I know we're talking kind of conceptually. I don't know how big of a drop off this Saints offense really is. They in some ways are harder because Taysom Hill, Bridgewater is serviceable and they have all the weapons you could ever want. So it could be in a way an actual a way to create value on some Saints prospects.
Yeah, I don't want to be blasphemous, but I don't think Teddy is a better quarterback than Drew Brees, but it's just he opens up different opportunities. And when you can work in Taysom Hill more than you would, obviously with Brees as the quarterback, like there's just a lot they can do with all of their weapons.
No doubt.
So you guys are both on the Saints?
Yeah,
I think so.
On the game, I have not bet that game. I have not put in anything actually, but yeah, I would lean to New Orleans at home.
Yeah, I'm gonna probably bet the Saints, but I'm gonna wait and see where that number goes. If that goes any higher, then I'm definitely firing on the Saints.
Nice.
Okay.
Before we get out of here, Ben, you mentioned you're going to have an article coming up for college. Obviously, there's 4 games tonight, and then full slate tomorrow. Are any of the 4 games tonight you're looking at pretty interesting to you?
So there are, and yeah, I have a DFS and betting preview up for tonight. I am working right after the show on the Saturday slate. We'll have that posted and ready to go. There's a couple games tonight. Virginia Tech at home against Duke. I like them. I'm not going to get too in depth with that. At just Lane Stadium at night. They haven't been great, but I'm not a huge believer that they can't get it done in an ACC matchup to avoid 0-2. But the game I want to get into, it's a little more fun to take a live dog. I have Maryland plus 6.5 at home against Penn State tonight. Money line's around plus 200. I think that Maryland's going to win. I really do. And this is a team that we saw them. I mean, they hung like 70 on their first 2 opponents. They went to Temple in a really tough spot and lost the game. That ended all the Maryland. If they had any hype, it was over then. Then they got a bye in week 4. Penn State, they've stayed at home the first 3 weeks, beat up on some ugly teams. I think they played Idaho, which is nothing. And then they beat Pittsburgh 17-10. Pittsburgh beat UCF, so maybe that is a good win. But this is their first road game. They're going into College Park. And they're facing a Maryland team that's going to move the ball. They have Anthony McFarland, dynamic running back. Their quarterback is the former Virginia Tech quarterback. So this is a Maryland team that, they have the skill positions to match up with a Penn State team that I really don't know much about, to be honest. We really haven't seen anything from them. They beat up on some teams and they snuck by Pittsburgh. So in a game where I'm getting basically a touchdown, I think this could be a trap game on a Friday night where Penn State might not be nearly as good. They have a lot of questions on the defensive side that I don't think they've answered because they haven't played anyone yet.
Yeah, that's an interesting game tonight.
It is. It's a weird spot. When you get games like that, I tend to side with the dogs. At home. I know it seems weird. I have less questions about Maryland than I do Penn State. Now, I'm not saying they're the better team overall, but at the same time, I think I know what I'm going to get out of them. Whereas Penn State, the range of outcomes is gigantic. So I tend to lean with maybe an upset in a spot like that.
Yeah, just looking at the numbers, looks like there's more money being bet on Maryland than Penn State. It's relatively close, but that is certainly indicative of something. I do like that spot for Maryland. I have to ask you obviously about Michigan after last week's debacle.
Sure.
They get Rutgers, who's essentially a cupcake, but do you see there's going to be a letdown spot for Michigan?
I don't know. Probably not, just because their talent will supersede how bad Rutgers is, but just a team that is what a disappointment. College football, Oregon kind of
Unbelievable.
salvaged my week last week, convincing win over Stanford, but Michigan was a team I really liked and just not competitive. I mean, if you want to give an excuse, you can say their first drive, they drove to the goal line and they fumbled, but you got to hang in the game. I mean, they got just physically outmanned. At Wisconsin, it's the same story with Jim Harbaugh and with Shea Patterson. They just have absolutely nothing. So yeah, they're gonna win against Rutgers, but what just again a huge disappointment for anyone that thought Michigan, this was their year to, they had everything
Yeah.
set up. They got Ohio State at home. What more could you ask for? And it's basically on life support already.
Yeah, not a good look for that Michigan program coming back from last week. Real quick before we get out of here, any of the other Saturday games like jumping out to you?
So there's a couple games that I look to. Not the ranked versus ranked are pretty, I think, evenly matched. I'll give one kind of, I don't want to say it's super bizarre, but I'm going all the way to Corvallis up in Oregon. I think Oregon State, I'm picking on Stanford this entire year. I've been fading them profitably for a while now. They are just a mess. It's not the Stanford defense that we're used to seeing. Oregon, won pretty easily last week. UCF hung 45 on them. USC hung 45 on them. They're already 0-2 in the Pac-12. Now they go to Corvallis and they're a 4-point favorite on the road. And as bad as Oregon State is, they've looked all right this year. They hung with Oklahoma State. They lost a squeaker to Hawaii, who's not a terrible team, and then they beat up on Cal Poly, which means nothing. But this is traditionally a tough place to play. Oregon State has stability at the QB position, so for a bad team, that's probably priority number one. I think they score enough, and I don't know where the points come from for Stanford. They just don't have anything on either side of the ball. So give me the +4, give me the +160 in a minor upset in the Pac-12.
Nice. I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we get out of here, I do want to give a quick shout out to our sponsor, EB Analytics. If you're looking for betting models, real-time odds, betting stats, make sure to check them out for all the tools and products you might need. Any final thoughts, boys, before we go into the weekend?
Looking forward to a 3-0 week. Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah, just obviously for me, college, that's my primary focus until that gets going. If you have any questions, hop in our Slack chat. Love to chat. We got plenty of people in there talking CFB, and stay tuned. A long season ahead, and it's exciting times.
Cool. Well, stay tuned. Coming on right after us is the Yahoo-driven NFL strategy show with Nolan Kelly and, of course, Alex Baker, Awesemo himself. So stay tuned for that, and good luck, everybody. We'll see you next week.